Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and I already covered today's anniversary. I'll link to it below. So we're going to pick up with the Life Dynamics podcast with Troy Newman from Operation Rescue. And unfortunately, I had a computer glitch, so this might not be exactly where I let off, but it's going to be close enough.
Well, Sarah, let's go back to COVID just a few years ago, where there was a guy that died from a motorcycle accident, and his first cause of death was listed as COVID.
Right.
He had COVID and he crashed, therefore he died of COVID. And that happened all the time. People that were elderly, people that were obese, people that had all these, underlying complications, and if they just got a cold, they would have probably wound up dead. But with abortion, it's the exact reverse. They will never mention it.
Yeah.
Unless they're forced to. I remember back in the days when we were investigating Kristen Gilbert's death, we're waiting for the...
And I'm also going to link below about why these abortion statistics are pretty much meaningless, pretty thoroughly meaningless. We can even look especially at the case of Latache Vial. This was a 17-year-old girl who bled to death after an abortion. The abortionist, Dr. Robert Christ, discussed her death at the National Abortion Federation Risk Management Seminar in Dallas in 1992. Discussed this death. And it was also covered in the news because her parents got a very vocal, outspoken lawyer. It was covered all over Texas in the news. It was covered all over Kansas in the news because that's where Chris typically operated out of. He was a circuit rider who'd go down into Texas to do abortions. It was covered in pro-life newsletters, and again, Chris discussed this death at a National Abortion Federation risk management seminar in 1992. Present at that seminar were two CDC abortion surveillance employees. Stanley Henshaw, which isn't quite that big a deal, and Lisa Coonan. Why is it so significant that Lisa Coonan was there? Because it was her job to verify abortion deaths. And really, Latache's death could barely have been more obvious if she had crawled to Atlanta and expired on the floor of Lisa Coonan's office with her aftercare instructions clutched in her hand. But somehow the CDC did not count any abortion deaths in Latache's race or age range. They didn't even count Latache's death when Chris discussed it at a seminar where Lisa Coonan, whose job it was to track this sort of thing, was there. So they're really, really good at see no evil when it comes to abortion deaths.
CDC to come out and report on abortion, and I think that year they had 2 deaths from abortion directly, and we reported on both of them. We reported on both of them, and I will guarantee you, had we not made such a huge public outcry that both these women died from complications of abortion, they never would have been zero. And you'll see that year after year. But if you go to abortion911.com, you will see one after another, after another, after another botched abortions, and sometimes we find out that the women died. Other times we don't know if the women died, because again, they whitewash it so much. I could do a FOIA request tomorrow, and everybody in Illinois say that died from an abortion. We come back and say 0, 0. Oh, what about women? We do sometimes do an age, like say from 16 to 35.
Yeah, and that's another issue. In order for the way it works, and I spent 6 months researching this when I worked at Life Dynamics. States send samples of their data to the National Center for Health Statistics. So just to make the math easy, I'm going to say that they do 10%. Because if you did all the death certificates for your entire state, that would be a huge data set. So they take a sample of, I'm going to say 10% just to illustrate it, and they send those numbers to the National Center for Health Statistics. Now, if it's, let's say, let's just pick an ailment, Russian flu. Okay, we'll say in California they reported 10 people dying that year of Russian flu. Well, the National Center for Health Statistics is not going to say, oh, So a total of 10 people in California died from Russian flu. They're going to say, well, this is only 10% of the death certificates. So these 10 people in this sample size means that there were probably about 100 people in California that died from the Russian flu. Okay. For every other cause of death, that's how they do it. For abortion, they get that sample of that 10% of death certificates, and they go, oh, if there's one in there, they don't go, okay, this is 10% of death certificates, so there must have been 10 deaths. They go, oh, there was only one in the entire state. So there's that. They just take samples. The other thing is when the death certificate is filled out, it's really easy to bump abortion down low where it doesn't show up. She died from cardiorespiratory arrest. Well, no, they'll go like this. She died of cerebral anoxia, no oxygen to the brain, due to cardiorespiratory arrest. She stopped breathing and her heart stopped. Due to exsanguinating hemorrhage. Due to therapeutic misadventure. And if they mention the abortion at all, it's buried and it's in a box in the death certificate that doesn't get pulled when they're doing their statistical analysis. So there's lots of ways to hide the fact that it's an abortion. The way the CDC counts them, it's kind of the equivalent of putting a bushel basket in the middle of an apple orchard, counting the apples that fell into the basket and saying that that is every apple that fell from the trees in that orchard. That's how appalling their counting is.
Childbearing age or something like that, and then you get, all these autopsies, and you start going through them, you go, oh, wait a minute, this would probably die from abortion, this would definitely die from abortion, etc.
Yeah.
So it's definitely whitewashed.
Well, and I think people really need to go read Line 5, because Mark reported on this, because they were studying deaths from abortion, and they would get the official statistics from the government, and then they would have their own stuff that they found, and they would find that the numbers were vastly different. They had found cases that the government never even admitted to.
And
Correct.
some states don't even truly report the
No.
numbers.
One thing I wanted to bring up with you, Troy, that I noticed and we have heard happening, is where when these abortion clinics call 911, there will be times where they will request a certain hospital, and it will not be the one that is close. It'll often be the ones that's the farthest away.
Okay, so I'm going to back up here because this is a whole new can of worms. So I'm going to back up and pick up on our next visit. So come back for more later.